Welcome to the Ash Grove Cement Company. You must conduct your work according to Ash Grove safety policies and procedures, as well as comply with all laws and regulations that apply to the work you are doing. When you first arrive at the site, you must sign in. After checking in, your Ash Grove contact will provide further direction. Please note that Ash Grove Cement requires that you back in when parking in all areas of the plant. Before we touch on our site-specific hazards and life-saving rules, we want you to know about some specific requirements, starting with Stop Work Authority. It is your responsibility to stop any work or activity that you think is or may be unsafe. Please take our safety pledge. When I see something, I will stop and do something. What this means is that we expect you to take action to prevent an injury when you see something that isn't right. Next is training. Everyone must receive Ash Grove's site-specific hazard awareness training before they can begin work, and this includes any new or additional employees who come onto the property. All other training, safety or work-related, is the responsibility of your employer. Moving on, here is basic information about our incident and emergency procedures. Fires, explosions, process upsets, and severe weather may require the evacuation of parts or all of the plant areas. A siren will sound to signal an emergency. If the siren goes off, you must evacuate to the plant's safe area, which will be communicated to you by your Ash Grove contact, and wait for further instructions. Report all injuries and incidents to your Ash Grove representative. Your employer is responsible for filing notification paperwork with MSHA where required. In the event of an accident meeting any of MSHA's 12 criteria set forth in 30 CFR Part 50, you must immediately notify us so that a call can be made to MSHA within 15 minutes of the event. And last, before moving on to the life-saving rules, here is information about identifying hazards and doing risk assessments. You must document a workplace examination looking for and correcting hazardous conditions before work begins in any area or shift in which you work. Any condition that is immediately hazardous to life or health requires you to withdraw everyone, secure the area, and notify Ash Grove. Follow MSHA's requirements by recording the date, the areas inspected, all hazards identified, the name of the person doing the inspection, and the date any corrective actions were completed. Please let your Ash Grove contact know about any hazards found during the inspection. With those topics covered, we'll move into site-specific hazards and Ash Grove's life-saving rules. The first life-saving rule deals with contractor safety management. Contractors at Ash Grove cement plants may have exposure to typical electrical, mechanical, construction, earth-moving, and technical consulting hazards. As such, all contractors must be pre-qualified to meet safety and insurance requirements. Without this authorization, no work may proceed. Authorized contractors must have a pre-approved job plan and conduct and document daily safety inspections. The next life-saving rule deals with machine safety, which includes caught-in, crushing, and pinching hazards that can result from the powerful energy of moving machinery and equipment. For your protection, you must stay away from moving conveyor belts, energized and unguarded equipment, and you must be aware that conveyor belts can start unexpectedly from remote locations. Flashing lights and sirens signal when a conveyor belt is about to start. Safe work practices include requirements for following strict lock, tag, try procedures before working on machines or equipment that can start unexpectedly. Properly guarding all tools and equipment and replacing guards once work is complete. Closely related to machine safety is lockout-tagout. Working on machines or equipment that are not properly locked out can result in serious injuries or fatalities. Consequently, you must use lockout-tagout procedures before working on any kind of machine or equipment that can cause these kinds of injuries. These procedures include placing a lockout lock with the name of the lock's owner on it, along with a tag with a warning statement such as "Danger, do not operate," on the disconnect for the power source or on a gang lockbox. You must be accompanied by an Ash Grove employee when locking out equipment, and you cannot shut down or disconnect any equipment without prior Ash Grove approval. The next life-saving rule is about electrical safety. Electrical hazards, such as arc flash, electric shock, or even electrocution, may be present throughout our site. For your safety, you must stay out of substations, electrical rooms, or motor control centers unless you are specifically authorized by Ash Grove. Anyone working directly with electricity or electrical components must have the correct training and use arc flash rated clothing and tools. The next life-saving rule applies primarily to the hazards created by large pieces of rubber-tired, tracked, or railed equipment. Serious or fatal struck-by and crushing injuries or property damage are possible with any type of mobile equipment. To prevent pedestrian interaction and contact with mobile equipment, stay within the paths marked by signs, barriers, railings, cones, and painted crosswalks. To prevent other unwanted contact, make sure that you follow posted speed limit signs, give the right-of-way to larger mobile equipment, make sure that equipment operators see you before approaching by waiting for a wave from the operator, acknowledging that they can see you, and never park smaller mobile equipment in the blind spot of larger equipment. Anyone operating mobile equipment must be properly trained on the equipment and must know how to use the emergency controls. In a related sense, operators must also complete a pre-use inspection of mobile equipment, identify and correct safety defects, or take out of service any equipment that cannot be immediately repaired. Seatbelt use is required for all people in a vehicle of any size, and this includes passengers. Backing up is particularly dangerous, so park so that you can pull forward to leave. Make sure you have a working backup alarm or are using a spotter when backing. When parked, set the parking brake, lower any attachments to the ground, place the transmission in park or neutral, turn off the engine, and chock the wheels. Do not leave mobile equipment unattended without following each of these requirements. Sound the horn before putting a vehicle into motion, and stay out of the quarry areas unless you are specifically authorized by Ash Grove to drive there. You must equip vehicles with a flashing beacon and a whip flag when in a quarry. Last in this section, stay away from and off material stockpiles where engulfment is possible, and at least 25 feet away from high walls where rocks can fall, striking you or equipment. From mobile equipment, we move to mobile phone safety. These useful tools also pose hazards caused by distracted driving or walking that can result in serious injuries, equipment, or property damage. Because of these hazards, you must minimize the use of cell phones and never use them while operating equipment or vehicles. We require you to use them only in designated areas and to stop to talk and to stop to text. From phones, we move next to personal protective equipment, or PPE. The lack of or improper use of PPE can result in a variety of injuries. Our PPE requirements are safety-toed footwear, Class 3 high-visibility apparel for the upper torso, safety glasses with side shields, and hard hat. Note that some PPE will be job-specific, and you must review those requirements with your Ash Grove contact before starting work. The next life-saving rule has to do with lifting operations, the kind that go with the use of mobile and stationary cranes as well as the use of overhead hoists. The hazards of lifting operations include shifting or spinning loads that can strike a person or equipment, as well as the failure of rigging components resulting in the dropping of a load. Because of these hazards, lifting or hoisting operations may require the use of a permit that details the requirements for a safe lift. Operators of mobile cranes or overhead hoists must show proof of certification and know how to use the equipment. The lifting equipment requires a formal annual inspection and periodic inspections prior to each use. Proof of these written inspections must be kept with the equipment and made readily available. Always use a tagline to keep people away from the load, control the load so it won't spin, and to help direct the load as it's moved. Use barrier tape or construction fencing to keep people out of the lift area. One of the most significant life-saving rules at Ash Grove deals with working at heights. People falling from an elevated position or the dropping of tools, materials, or equipment can result in severe to fatal injuries. Working outside handrails, from the platform of a mobile elevated work platform such as a JLG or Genie lift, climbing ladders or other structures, or removing sections of catwalk or handrail exposes people to falls or being struck by dropped objects. To provide protection to you and others, Ash Grove requires the use of fall protection when working at or above 4 feet, unless working within the bounds of a permanent and designated work platform. Fall protection is also required when working from mobile elevated work platforms. If work involves the removal of a catwalk grating or sections of handrail, a hazardous opening permit is required. This also includes the use of fall protection, posting of warning signs, placing of barricades to the entrances of the work area, and closing the opening when it is not attended. When engaged in overhead work, use colored barrier tape to keep others out of the drop zone for tools, equipment, or materials. Additionally, place warning tags with contact information on the barrier tape in at least 2 approaches to the work area. When individuals or crews are working at heights, they must secure their tools, equipment, and materials so that they cannot fall to lower levels. Dropped materials can come from other sources, such as when opening the hatch to a bin, chute, or duct. Such activities can result in the release of materials that strike the person, causing serious injuries. To prevent this contact, always stand to the side when opening hatches or covers. Finally, ladders are useful tools, but many falls occur when they are incorrectly used. At Ash Grove, we have a ladders last policy that says ladders must be the last choice for working at height. Use scaffolding, mobile lifts, or mobile stable platforms for this kind of work. The next life-saving rule is for confined spaces. Designated confined spaces present physical hazards, such as rotating machine parts, mixer blades, or engulfment by liquid or solid materials. They may also have atmospheric hazards, such as carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, oxygen deficiency, flammable or toxic vapors or gases, and high dust or welding fume levels. These conditions can result in critical or fatal injuries. You must have a permit to enter any permit-required confined space and follow the requirements listed on the permit. Your Ash Grove representative will supply more details about any confined spaces you may be entering. Lone or remote work can lead to serious or even life-threatening outcomes if steps have not been put in place to check the status of those people. You are expected to have a plan for communicating with and checking the status of workers who may be working alone or remotely. Safety around explosives is a significant concern at Ash Grove Cement. A blast followed by fly rock creates the potential for serious injury or death or damage to equipment and property. Because of the risks, this life-saving rule requires that only properly trained, licensed, and authorized contractors or employees store, handle, transport, or use explosives. Stay out of posted blast areas and leave such areas at the direction of Ash Grove personnel. The final life-saving rule covers process and occupational safety. Within plant areas, you may find cement kiln dust or CKD. It must be kept out of boots, out of eyes, and off skin. In addition, there are chemicals present, such as ammonia, acids, bases, such as sodium hydroxide, and free lime that can cause damage to the respiratory system, skin, or eyes. Combustion gases, such as carbon monoxide, sulfur, and nitrogen oxides, are inhalation hazards that can cause serious injury. Fine dust particles may contain crystalline silica or heavy metals that are hazardous to inhale. Coal, when used, can result in accumulations of combustible or explosive dusts. Alternative fuels present fire and explosion hazards, as well as the potential for exposure to toxic chemicals. Fire suppression chemicals such as carbon dioxide or nitrogen can be asphyxiants. Cement manufacturing also involves high temperatures that create hot surfaces, gases, and dusts. Some dusts can crust over and outwardly appear cool, but contain red-hot material underneath. A kiln flush or a positive pressure event on a preheater tower can release superheated dusts and gases through a multitude of openings. Touching, breathing, or otherwise contacting these hot materials can produce serious and life-threatening burns. You must follow all safety instructions for working in areas containing these hazards, and you may not enter some posted areas without supervision and prior approval. Specialized PPE, tools, or equipment may be required for work in some of these areas. You must follow Ash Grove's hot work policy requirements. including obtaining a permit for any welding, cutting, brazing, or grinding that you may do in any plant areas. No smoking areas are posted, and smoking is not permitted around any flammable or combustible dusts, liquids, gases, or vapors. If you bring any chemicals onto plant property, you must be able to furnish your Ash Grove representative with a recent copy of a safety data sheet for each chemical. This completes your introduction to our cement plant operations, our life-saving rules, and the types of hazards that you may encounter while working or visiting here. If you have questions, please ask your Ash Grove contact for clarification. There may be additional risks associated with the work you are doing, and your Ash Grove representative will go over those risks with you apart from this video. In closing, while working at Ash Grove, we encourage you to embrace our safety pledge. When I see something, I will stop and do something.